Okay, so finding factors in maths is fairly important, but also people find it very challenging. So I've put together a video just reminding you of what factors are, with some tips on how to actually find factors. Okay, so first thing we need to do, what are factors? Factors, the definition, are numbers that can be divided into another number evenly, that is without remainders or decimals. Multiples are the numbers you get when you multiply the starting number by another number. So some multiples are of 3 are 3, 6, 9, 12, whereas the factors of 12 are going to be smaller or no greater than 12. Okay, so people often confuse those. We're dividing in this instance, not multiplying. So some tools to use when we are looking for factors. It's a good idea to have a times table chart next to you. Typically, we end up doing 12 by 12, but you can find 15 by 15 on the internet or 20 by 20, depending on how big a space you have. Realistically, in say year 7, 8, 9, what we're trying to do is not necessarily test your times tables, but test your ability to recognize the numbers and find factors. So your numbers aren't going to be super complicated, or they're going to be easy to divide by 2 and you end up with 144, and then you find the factors from that one. So times table chart stuck in the front of your book, very good idea. Obviously, calculator is good, although sometimes you may have a no calculator allowed test where you just need to use your head, which means you can do it by essentially using long division. And of course, you're always going to need to start by engaging your brain. So some hints, helpful rules and tips when you're looking for factors. Be logical, so start small, work your way up. Think, do I know this number? Do I recognize it from my times tables? I really can't emphasize knowing your times tables enough. Realistically, yes, you will have a calculator, but if you can do it in your head, it's just going to be that much faster for you, especially if you're aiming to do some of the higher maths. So put a times table chart on the back of the toilet door. Download an app that does singing times tables, because we remember things better when we sing. Know your times tables. List them in pairs so you know that you're getting them both. Always list one and the number itself. Is it even? So does it end in a 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8? Is it a multiple of 10? So does it end in a 0? Is it a multiple of 5? Does it end in a 0 or 5? So think about the number itself. Have you seen it before? What are some tips and tricks to help you work it out? 2 other tricks that I recently learned. So for working out whether it's in the 3 times tables or a multiple of 3, add all the digits together and divide that number by 3. If it doesn't work, then 3 is not a factor, which means 6, 9, 12, 15, etc. are not factors. The trick for 4 is look at the last 2 digits, the tens and the units. If that number is divisible by 4, then 4 is a factor. Okay, so if we are being logical about this, start small, work our way up, and do you know the number? So I know, obviously, then you're going to have 1 and 144. It is an even number, which means 2 goes into this one 72 times. 3 will go in, because we know this is a 12 times 12, but we can check it using our rule. So 1 plus 4 plus 4 equals 9. So 3 will go into it. If we do it longhand, 3 goes into 1 0 times. So we move the 1 over. 3 goes into 14 4 times with 2 remainder. 3 goes into 24 8 times, so it's 3 and 48. 4 will go in because 12 goes in, so again we can do it longhand. I don't have a calculator with me at the moment. So again, 4 goes into 14 3 times with 2 remainder. 4 goes into 24 6 times, so 36. 5 is not a factor because it doesn't end in a 0 or a 5. 6 will be a factor because 3 is a factor. And realistically, we've multiplied this by 2, so we half this and we get 24. 4 goes in. 7 clearly is not going to go into that. 8 will work. Again, we've doubled this, so we half that, which gives us 18. 9 will go in, so we've times this by 3, so we divide this by 3. Or you could do it longhand, so you could go 9. Okay, it doesn't go into 1, but it does go into 14. It goes in once with 5 remainder. 9 goes into 54 6 times. 10 does not go in, 11 doesn't go in, and then we have 12 by 12. So you have them in pairs. So the factors of 144 are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 9, 12, 16, 18, 24, 36, 48, 72, and 144. Now, often you are asked to list them. So that just means you write them out. You don't write the 12 twice, okay? You just write it the once. So write them out with a comma separating them. And always remember to put itself in there. Right, so the next number, this number here, 36. Whenever I see 36, I think of a whole range of times tables. So I'm going to suggest pause here. I'll give you the one hint that obviously you're going to have 1 and 36. Think about, is it even? What times tables have you seen it in? So pause now and restart once you've made your list. Hopefully you've done that. So I know that it's going to be an even number because it ends in a 6, and that goes in 18 times. 3 goes in 12 times. 4 goes in 9 times. 5 doesn't. 6 does. And it's 6 times 6. Now, I don't have to rewrite the 6, so as soon as I get to it where it's essentially 6 squared, I found all of my numbers. Again, if you're asked to list it, you simply write them out with a comma separating them, and don't worry about writing the 6 twice. Next number, 39. 39 is an odd one, okay? It's not one that we come up against often. So obviously 1 and 39 are going to work. 2 is not going to work because that's an odd number, which means 2, 4, 6 are all out. 8's obviously out as well. So it's going to leave us with our odd numbers. 3 will go into that, so it will be 3 and 13. And it actually stops there because 13 is a prime number, so there's nothing we can do to change that one there. So before, when we were doing 144, we went, well, if I double that, then 6 goes in. Well, this one we can't half it. All right. So the factors for 39 are going to be 1, 3, 13, and 39. Again, pause it, try it yourself. It ends with a 0. Obviously, there's going to be heaps here. Okay, start with your 100, your 1 and your 520. It's going to be 2 and 260, and you work your way through. That's going to be 3 is going to go into it because 5 plus 2 is 7. So maybe 3 isn't going to work, so we can rub that one out. Okay, 4 is going to go into it because you can half that, so 4 and half that again, so that's going to be 130. 5 is going to go into it because it ends in a 0. So 5 goes in 100, no. So 10 is 50. 5 goes in 100 times and it goes into 24 times, so we can go 104. 6 will go in, maybe not, because the 3 didn't. 7, I'm going to go with no. 8, maybe. So again, get your calculator is probably the best way for this one. Okay, 8 doesn't go into that number, so we move it across. It goes into 52 6 times. 6 times with, so yeah, 6 times 8 is 48, which leaves us with 4, so 65 times. Okay, 9, no, because 3 doesn't, 10, yes, so it's going to be 52. And you keep going. 11's not going to work, 12 might. Use your calculator. Once it starts to get to this sort of point where it's not as easy, we would be expecting you to use a calculator. So I'm going to suggest there are many, many more here. You just need to use your calculator to do it. And again, to do it logically, you could double this, so that would become 20, and that would half that, so it would become 26, and you work from there. Okay, so use your calculator to finish these ones off, and you would not be expected to have these ones in a test where you're not working with the calculator. Now, I've chucked this one in just as a last step because quite often we really start, once you finish your primary school in year 7, factors aren't really talked about unless you're talking about them in algebra. And what we need to think about here is that this is essentially two things. So factors y and x. We don't know what those numbers are, so they are just factors that we don't know at this point in time. We then work with the 120 by itself, okay? And in a later video, I'll talk about factorizing in algebra. So this one here, 1 and obviously 120, 2 and 60. 3 is definitely going to go in there. It goes in 40 times. So I just ignored the 0, added it at the end. So 3 goes into 12 4 times, put the 0 on the end. 4 is obviously going to go in, same deal. It's going to go in 30 times. 5 is going to go in because it finishes with a 0. So that goes in 104 times. No, sorry, 24 times. 8 is going to go in because we can double this and half that. So 6 will go in 20 times. 7, no. 8, yes. We've doubled that, so we half that. Okay. We can then, we can't double this again. So 9 may well go in, so it's worth giving it a try. I suspect it won't, but let's try it anyway. Okay, so 9 goes into 12 because it doesn't go into 1 once with 3 remainder. 9 goes into 30 3 times with 3 remainder. So 9 is not going to be a factor. 10 will be a factor because it ends in a 0. So it'll be 10 and 12. 11, no. 12, yes. So we've gotten ourselves back to that point there. Other ones that haven't come up yet. Oh no, we've got 20 there. So the factors here obviously are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12, 15, 20, 24, 30, 40, 60 and 120. with x and y being factors as well. We just don't know what they are, so we leave them as they are and list them as factors. And again, this will come up when you're using factorization in algebra. So maybe check in again for a factorization of algebra terms, so factorizing algebra. Hopefully that's helpful.